Destroy your old self. Wake up now. There comes a moment in life when you realize that the person you used to be can no longer carry you where you are meant to go. The old self, filled with doubt, fear, procrastination, and excuses, was built from past failures, other people's opinions, and comfort zones that slowly became cages.
But today is not about regret. Today is about awakening.
You are not here to repeat yesterday's habits. You are here to rise, to rebuild, and to redefine who you are. Growth begins the second you decide that your future matters more than your past. Destroying your old self does not mean hating who you were. It means thanking that version for surviving and then courageously letting it go. Wake up now, not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Every dream you delay becomes a life you postpone. The world does not change when you wait. It changes when you wait. It changes when you act. Discipline must replace excuses, action must replace overthinking, and belief must replace fear. The person you want to become already exists inside you, waiting for a decision, a bold, unstoppable decision, to move forward, despite discomfort. Transformation is never comfortable. It demands sacrifice, consistency, and courage when motivation fades. But remember this, the pain of change is temporary, while the pain of staying the same lasts a lifetime. So stand up mentally and emotionally. Break the patterns that keep you small. Speak differently, think differently, and act differently. Starting today, stop negotiating with your potential and start honoring it. Each morning is a new identity waiting to be claimed. Destroy the habits that weaken you and build routines that strengthen you. Wake up to your purpose, wake up to your power, and wake up to the truth that no one is coming to save you, because you were always meant to save yourself. This is your moment to rise, to transform, and to become the strongest version of yourself. The old you had its time. Now it's over. Wake up and begin again. Letting go of your past identity is one of the most difficult yet powerful decisions you will ever make, because the person you have been for years feels familiar, safe, and predictable, even if that version of you is holding your life back. Every human being builds an identity over time, through experiences, failures, successes, opinions from others, and repeated habits. Slowly, without realizing it, you begin to believe that who you were yesterday is who you must remain tomorrow. You start saying things like, "This is just how I am," or "I can't change." And those quiet sentences become invisible, chains around your potential. The truth is, your old self is not your destiny. It is only a chapter. The problem arises when you confuse history with identity and allow past versions of yourself to control your future decisions. Your old identity was shaped during moments when you were learning how to survive, not necessarily how to thrive. Not necessarily how to thrive. Maybe you learned to doubt yourself because someone once told you that you were not capable. Maybe you stopped trying after failure, convinced you that effort leads to disappointment. Maybe comfort became your hiding place because risk once brought pain. These reactions were understandable at the time, but survival strategies are not always growth strategies. What protected you in the past may now be limiting you. The habits that once helped you cope may now prevent you from evolving. Holding on to an outdated version of yourself is like wearing clothes that no longer fit. They restrict movement, create discomfort, and stop you from stepping confidently into new spaces. Letting go does not mean rejecting your past with anger or shame. It means understanding that every version of you served a purpose. The insecure version taught you resilience. The struggling version taught you patience. The fearful version taught you caution. But lessons are meant to guide you forward, not imprison you. When you cling to past mistakes, you unknowingly relive them again and again through your thoughts and actions. Your mind begins to replay old stories. I failed before. I'm not good enough. People like me don't succeed. These beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies, shaping choices that keep you exactly where you are. To release your old self, you must first challenge these internal narratives and recognize that they are memories, not truths. Transformation begins with awareness. You must honestly observe the patterns that define your current identity. Notice the excuses you repeat, the fears you avoid confronting, and the habits that quietly steal your time and energy. Awareness is uncomfortable because it forces you to see where you have been settling for less than your potential. Yet this discomfort is necessary. Clarity is the doorway to change. Once you become aware, you gain the power to choose differently. Identity is not fixed. It is built through repeated decisions. Every action you take either reinforces the old version of you or creates space for a new one. One of the biggest obstacles in letting go of the past self is emotional attachment. Even painful identities can feel familiar, and familiarity often feels safer than growth. Your brain prefers predictability because it reduces uncertainty. That is why change feels threatening, even when it is positive. You may find yourself returning to old habits, simply because they are known territory. However, growth requires stepping into uncertainty. You must be willing to feel uncomfortable, unsure, and even afraid while moving toward a better version of yourself. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that your future matters more than your comfort. Another challenge is the opinions of others. People around you may unconsciously expect you to remain the same because they are used to the old version of you. When you begin to change, some may question your decisions, doubt your ambitions, or remind you of who you used to be. This can create internal conflict, making you wonder whether transformation is worth the resistance. But remember, people often respond to change based on their own fears and limitations, not your potential. Your responsibility is not to remain understandable to everyone. Your responsibility is to grow into who you are capable of becoming. True transformation sometimes requires outgrowing environments, conversations, and expectations that no longer align with your vision. Letting go also means forgiving yourself. Many people remain trapped in old identities because they carry guilt about past mistakes. They believe they must punish themselves by staying small or avoiding new opportunities. But guilt, when held too long, becomes a barrier to progress. You cannot build a powerful future while constantly reliving past errors. Forgiveness is not pretending mistakes never happened. It is accepting that you learned from them and choosing to move forward wiser. Every successful person has versions of themselves they had to leave behind. Growth is not about perfection. It is about evolution. As you release your old identity, you must consciously replace it with new habits and beliefs. Nature does not tolerate emptiness, and neither does the human mind. If you remove old patterns without creating new ones, you will eventually return to what is familiar. Begin by redefining how you speak to yourself. Replace limiting thoughts with empowering ones. Instead of saying, "I can't," ask, "How can I?" Instead of focusing on fear, focus on possibility. Your inner dialogue shapes your external reality more than you realize. The words you repeat internally become the blueprint for your actions. Consistency plays a crucial role in identity transformation. A new self is not created through one motivational moment, but through repeated daily choices. Each time you wake up early instead of delaying your goals, you reinforce discipline. Each time you take action despite fear, you strengthen courage. Each time you choose growth over comfort, you weaken the hold of your old identity. Small actions may feel insignificant at first, but over time, they reshape how you see yourself. Identity follows behavior. When you act differently long enough, you begin to believe differently. You must also learn to detach from outcomes while focusing on progress. The old self often seeks immediate validation and gives up when results are slow. The new self understands that transformation is gradual. Just as a seed does not become a tree overnight, personal growth requires patience. There will be days when you feel like nothing is changing, when doubts return, and when old habits call you back. These moments are not signs of failure. They are part of the transition. Every breakthrough is preceded by periods of uncertainty. What matters is persistence. Letting go of the past identity also involves redefining your relationship with failure. The old self sees failure as proof of inadequacy. while the evolving self sees it as feedback. Every attempt teaches you something valuable about strategy, resilience, and self-awareness. When you stop fearing failure, you unlock freedom. Freedom to try, to learn, and to grow without constant self-judgment. Failure loses its power when you no longer attach it to your worth. Another important aspect is vision. You cannot fully release the old self unless you have a clear picture of who you want to become. Vision gives direction to transformation. Imagine the person you aspire to be, how they think, how they speak, how they handle challenges, and how they treat others. This vision becomes a compass, guiding your daily decisions. When faced with choices, ask yourself whether your actions align with the person you are becoming, rather than the person you used to be. Over time, alignment creates authenticity. Environment also plays a powerful role in identity change. Surroundings influence behavior more than willpower alone. If you remain in spaces that reinforce old habits, change becomes harder. Seek environments that inspire growth, learning, and positivity. This may include new routines, new influences, or new sources of knowledge. Exposure to new perspectives expands your sense of possibility and reinforces the belief that change is achievable. Patience with yourself is essential during this process. Transformation is not linear. Some days you will feel strong and confident, while other days you may feel pulled back into old patterns. Progress includes setbacks. Instead of criticizing yourself during difficult moments, view them as reminders to recommit. Growth is less about never falling and more about rising again with greater awareness each time. As you continue releasing your old identity, you will notice subtle shifts. Your confidence will begin to come from actions rather than approval. Your decisions will align more closely with your values. You will start feeling less controlled by fear and more guided by purpose. These changes may not be dramatic at first, but they accumulate quietly, reshaping your life from within. Eventually, you will look back and realize that the person you once were no longer defines you. Letting go of your past identity ultimately means accepting responsibility for your future. It requires acknowledging that while you cannot change what has happened, you have complete authority over what happens next. Every moment presents an opportunity to choose growth, courage, and authenticity. You are not required to remain loyal to a version of yourself that was created under different circumstances. You are allowed to evolve, to expand, and to redefine your limits. The process is not about becoming someone entirely different. It is about uncovering who you truly are beneath fear, doubt, and conditioning. Your potential has always existed, waiting for permission to emerge. When you release the old self, you do not lose yourself, you rediscover yourself. You step into a life shaped by intention, rather than habit, purpose, rather than fear, and possibility, rather than limitation. And one day, without even noticing the exact moment it happened, you will realize that the thoughts that once held you back no longer control you. The habits that once defined you no longer attract you. The fears that once felt permanent have faded into memories. You will stand stronger, clearer, and more awake, understanding that transformation was never about destroying who you were, but about freeing who you were always meant to become. Awareness is the first awakening, the moment when a person opens their eyes, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, to the reality of their own life. Many people move through their days on autopilot, repeating routines, reacting to circumstances, and living according to habits they never consciously chose. They wake up, follow familiar patterns, think familiar thoughts, and go to sleep without questioning whether their actions are leading them toward the life they truly want. This unconscious way of living feels normal because it is common, yet it quietly keeps people disconnected from their potential. Awakening begins when you pause long enough to notice that you have been living by default rather than by design. Awareness often starts with discomfort. It may come through frustration, dissatisfaction, or a deep feeling that something is missing even when life appears stable on the surface. That inner restlessness is not a weakness. It is a signal. It is your mind recognizing that growth is needed. Many people try to silence this feeling by distracting themselves with entertainment, comparison, or temporary pleasures, but awareness cannot be permanently ignored. The more you avoid it, the louder it becomes. Awakening happens when you stop running from that inner voice and begin listening to what it is trying to tell you. The first step of awareness is honest self-observation. This requires courage because it means looking at yourself without excuses or denial. You begin to notice your patterns, how you react to challenges, how you speak to yourself, how you spend your time, and how often fear influences your decisions. Instead of blaming circumstances or other people, awareness invites you to ask deeper questions. Why do I avoid certain opportunities? Why do I doubt myself, even when I are capable? Why do I repeat behaviors that I know do not serve me? These questions shift your focus from external problems to internal understanding, and that shift is powerful because true change always begins within. When awareness grows, you realize that many limitations you believed were permanent are actually learned behaviors. Beliefs about success, failure, confidence, and worthiness were shaped over time through experiences, upbringing, and social influence. Without awareness, these beliefs operate silently, guiding your choices without your permission. You may believe you are not talented enough, not lucky enough, or not strong enough, but awareness reveals that these ideas are interpretations, not facts. The moment you recognize a belief as learned rather than absolute, you gain the power to challenge it. Awareness also exposes the difference between who you are and who you have been conditioned to be. Society often encourages conformity, rewarding predictability and discouraging risk. Over time, people begin to suppress their authentic desires to meet expectations. They pursue paths chosen for approval, rather than fulfillment. Awakening occurs when you realize that much of your identity may have been shaped by external expectations rather than internal truth. This realization can feel unsettling, but it is also liberating because it opens the possibility of living authentically. Another important aspect of awareness is recognizing how thoughts influence emotions and actions. Most people assume emotions simply happen to them, but awareness reveals the connection between thinking patterns and emotional states. Negative self-talk creates anxiety and hesitation, while empowering thoughts create confidence and motivation. When you become aware of your inner dialogue, you begin to see how often you limit yourself through unconscious language. You notice how frequently you predict failure before trying or criticize yourself more harshly than anyone else would. This realization is not meant to create guilt, but to create choice. Once you see your thoughts clearly, you can begin to change them intentionally. Awareness also changes your relationship with time. Instead of seeing days as something to get through, you begin to see each moment as an opportunity. You notice how quickly life moves and how easily years pass when lived without intention. This realization can be both sobering and inspiring. It reminds you that waiting for the perfect time is often an illusion. Awakening shifts your mindset. From someday thinking to present action, you begin to understand that transformation starts with decisions made today, not plans imagined for the future. As awareness deepens, responsibility naturally follows. You start recognizing your role in shaping your circumstances. This does not mean blaming yourself for everything that has happened in your life, but it means acknowledging your power to respond differently moving forward. Awareness replaces helplessness with ownership. Instead of asking why life is happening to you, you begin asking how you can grow from it. This shift is empowering because it moves you from a passive participant to an active creator of your life. One of the most challenging parts of awakening is facing truths you previously avoided. Awareness may reveal habits that waste your potential, relationships that drain your energy, or fears that have quietly controlled your decisions. These realizations can feel uncomfortable because they challenge familiar comfort zones. However, discomfort during awareness is a sign of progress. It means you are seeing clearly for the first time. Just as light reveals what darkness hides, awareness reveals areas that need change. Without seeing clearly, growth remains impossible. Awareness also increases emotional intelligence. You begin to notice your reactions before they fully take control. Instead of responding impulsively to anger, stress, or criticism, you create space between stimulus and response. That small space is where personal power exists. It allows you to choose responses aligned with your values, rather than reacting based on old conditioning. Over time, this conscious response builds confidence because you realize you are no longer controlled by automatic reactions. Another transformation that comes with awareness is gratitude. When you become present and attentive, you start noticing details that once went unnoticed, small moments of peace, opportunities for learning, and progress that previously seemed invisible. Awareness shifts focus from what is missing to what is possible. Gratitude does not eliminate ambition, it strengthens it by grounding you in appreciation rather than scarcity. You begin to pursue goals from inspiration rather than desperation. Awareness also reshapes relationships. As you understand yourself better, you begin to understand others more deeply. You recognize that people act based on their own fears, experiences, and levels of awareness. This understanding reduces unnecessary resentment and increases compassion. You become less reactive to negativity because you no longer take everything personally. Instead, you choose connections that align with growth and mutual respect. However, awakening is not a single moment, but an ongoing process. Awareness expands continuously as you learn, reflect, and experience life. Each level of awareness reveals new layers of understanding. What once seemed clear may evolve as you grow. This continuous unfolding keeps life dynamic and meaningful. The goal is not to reach perfect awareness, but to remain open to learning and self-discovery. With awareness comes the realization that change is possible at any moment. You understand that identity is not fixed but flexible. Every thought you question, every habit you observe, and every decision you make consciously becomes an opportunity to redefine yourself. Awareness breaks the illusion that you are stuck. Awareness breaks the illusion that you are stuck. It reminds you that transformation begins not with external change, but with internal recognition. There is also a quiet confidence that emerges from awareness. You no longer seek constant validation because you understand yourself more clearly. Decisions become guided by values rather than fear of judgment. You begin trusting your intuition because you are more connected to your inner voice. This confidence is not loud or arrogant. It is calm and grounded, rooted in self-understanding. Awareness teaches patience as well. When you understand how deeply habits and beliefs are ingrained, you stop expecting instant transformation. You recognize that growth takes time, repetition, and compassion toward yourself. Instead of becoming discouraged by slow progress, you appreciate each step forward. Awareness allows you to celebrate improvement rather than focusing only on perfection. As awakening continues, purpose becomes clearer. You start identifying what truly matters to you beyond superficial goals. Success begins to mean alignment rather than comparison. You measure progress by personal growth rather than external approval. This clarity reduces confusion and increases direction, making decisions feel more intentional. Awareness ultimately leads to freedom. Freedom from unconscious patterns, limiting beliefs, and automatic reactions. It allows you to live deliberately rather than accidentally. You become the observer and the creator of your life simultaneously. Instead of drifting through circumstances, you navigate them with intention and understanding. The journey of awareness never truly ends because life constantly presents new lessons. Each challenge becomes an invitation to deepen understanding. Each success becomes an opportunity to remain humble and reflective. Awakening is not about reaching a final destination, but about living with open eyes and an open mind. And gradually, as awareness grows stronger, you begin to experience life differently. Moments feel richer, choices feel meaningful, and challenges feel like opportunities rather than obstacles. You realize that awakening was never about changing the world around you first. It was about seeing forced. It was about seeing or self clearly enough to change how you move within it. The moment you become aware, you stop sleepwalking through life and start living with intention, purpose, and clarity. Awareness becomes your compass, guiding every step toward growth, authenticity, and a deeper understanding of who you truly are and who you are capable of becoming. Action over excuses is the turning point between dreaming about change and actually experiencing it. Many people carry powerful goals, meaningful ambitions, and deep desires for transformation, yet their lives remain unchanged because intention without action produces nothing. Excuses often appear reasonable on the surface. They disguise themselves as lack of time, lack of resources, fear of failure, waiting for motivation, or believing that the right moment has not yet arrived. Over time, these excuses become comfortable explanations that protect a person from discomfort while quietly stealing progress. The danger of excuses is not that they sound false, but that they sound convincing enough to delay action again and again. Every human being understands what they should do to improve their life in some way. Most people know they should work harder on their goals, improve their habits, learn new skills, or take better care of their mental and physical health. The gap between knowing and doing is where excuses live. Excuses create the illusion of effort, without requiring real commitment. They allow a person to feel temporarily justified while remaining stuck. The mind becomes skilled at creating stories that defend inaction. You may tell yourself that you will begin tomorrow, next week, or when circumstances improve, but tomorrow often becomes another form of avoidance. Excuses are closely connected to fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of uncertainty, and even fear of success can stop people from acting, taking action, and stepping into the unknown, where outcomes are not guaranteed. The mind naturally prefers safety and predictability, so it produces excuses as a protective mechanism. However, protection can become limitation when it prevents growth. Every meaningful achievement requires facing uncertainty. Action is not the absence of fear. It is movement despite fear. When you act while feeling uncertain, you teach your mind that progress is possible even without perfect confidence. One of the most common excuses is waiting for motivation. People often believe they must feel inspired before they begin, but motivation is unreliable because emotions change constantly. Some days you feel energized, and other days you feel tired or discouraged. If action depends entirely on motivation, progress becomes inconsistent. Discipline, not motivation, creates lasting results. Discipline means choosing action even when enthusiasm is low. It transforms goals from emotional desires into daily commitments. Over time, consistent action actually generates motivation because progress creates momentum and confidence. Another powerful excuse is perfectionism. Many individuals delay action because they want conditions to be ideal or results to be flawless from the beginning. They spend excessive time planning, thinking, and preparing without ever starting. Perfectionism creates fear of mistakes, yet mistakes are essential for learning. Action teaches lessons that thinking alone never can. Progress comes from imperfect attempts repeated consistently. When you release the need for perfection, you allow yourself to begin, and beginning is often the hardest yet most important step. Excuses also thrive in comparison. Seeing others succeed can sometimes create discouragement rather than inspiration. People compare their starting point to someone else's success and conclude that they are already behind. Comparison becomes an excuse to avoid trying. What is often forgotten is that every successful person once started without experience, confidence, or certainty. Action levels the field because improvement occurs through effort, not comparison. When you focus on your own progress rather than others' achievements, excuses lose their influence. Time is another frequent excuse. Many people claim they do not have enough time to pursue goals, yet time is distributed equally to everyone each day. The difference lies in priorities. Awareness of how time is spent often reveals moments lost to distraction, hesitation, or activities that provide comfort but not growth. Taking action requires intentional use of time, even in small amounts. Consistent small efforts accumulate into significant results. Waiting for large blocks of free time often leads to endless delay, while starting with small daily actions builds momentum. Action also transforms identity. Action also transforms identity. Every time you take a step toward a goal, you reinforce a new belief about yourself. When you consistently act, you begin seeing yourself as disciplined, capable, and committed. Identity is shaped by behavior. Excuses reinforce the belief that change is difficult or impossible, while action proves the opposite. Each completed task becomes evidence that you are capable of growth. Over time, confidence becomes rooted in experience rather than hope. There is also a psychological shift that occurs when you prioritize action. Thinking about problems often amplifies fear, because imagination exaggerates obstacles. Action, however, replaces imagined difficulty with real experience. Many fears shrink once you begin moving. Challenges that seemed overwhelming become manageable when approached step by step. Action provides clarity because experience teaches what theory cannot. Instead of wondering whether something will work, you discover what works through practice. Consistency is the foundation of action. One powerful effort followed by long periods of inactivity rarely produces lasting change. Small, repeated actions create habits, and habits shape outcomes. The brain adapts to repetition, making behaviors easier over time. When action becomes routine, resistance decreases. You no longer rely on willpower alone because the behavior becomes part of your daily identity. This is why success often appears gradual rather than sudden. What looks like overnight achievement is usually the result of consistent action accumulated quietly over months or years. Excuses often return during moments of difficulty. When progress slows or obstacles appear, the mind searches for reasons to stop. This is where commitment becomes essential. Commitment means continuing, even when results are not immediately visible. Growth often occurs beneath the surface before it becomes noticeable externally. Like a seed growing underground before breaking through soil, progress may remain unseen for a time. Action during these invisible phases requires faith in the process. Another important aspect of choosing action is accepting responsibility. Excuses shift responsibility outward, blaming circumstances, luck, or other people. Action shifts responsibility inward, focusing on what can be controlled. While not every situation is within personal control, response always is. When you look at your taking responsibility does not mean self-blame. It means recognizing your ability to influence outcomes through effort and persistence. This mindset transforms obstacles into challenges rather than barriers. Energy also follows action. Many people believe they need energy before they act, but often energy increases after movement begins. Starting a task creates psychological momentum. Completing even small actions releases a sense of accomplishment that fuels further effort. This creates a positive cycle where action generates energy, which leads to more action. Breaking inertia is often the hardest step, but once movement begins, continuation becomes easier. Action builds resilience as well. Facing challenges directly strengthens emotional endurance. Each difficulty overcome increases confidence in handling future obstacles. Excuses prevent this growth because avoidance limits experience. When you act consistently, you develop problem-solving skills, adaptability, and patience. These qualities cannot be learned through theory alone. They are developed through real engagement with challenges. Support systems can influence action, but ultimately the decision to act remains personal. Encouragement from others may inspire, yet lasting change occurs when internal commitment replaces external pressure. You begin acting not because someone expects it, but because you believe in your own potential. This internal motivation sustains action, even when recognition or rewards are absent. Choosing action also changes how you view failure. Instead of seeing failure as a final judgment, you begin seeing it as information. Each unsuccessful attempt reveals adjustments needed for improvement. This perspective removes fear because failure becomes part of progress rather than an endpoint. Action-oriented individuals Understand that learning happens through doing, not avoiding mistakes. As action becomes a habit, confidence grows naturally. Confidence is often misunderstood as something that appears before effort, but in reality it develops after repeated action. Every completed challenge strengthens belief in your abilities. Over time, tasks that once felt intimidating become familiar. Growth expands comfort zones gradually, allowing you to attempt increasingly ambitious goals. Another benefit of prioritizing action is clarity of P. Suppose many people feel uncertain about their direction because they spend too much time thinking and too little time experimenting. Action reveals interests, strengths, and passions through experience. Trying different paths provides information that reflection alone cannot. Movement creates discovery, while hesitation maintains confusion. Action also inspires others. When people see someone consistently working toward improvement, it creates a ripple effect. Determination becomes visible, encouraging those around you to challenge their own excuses. Leadership often begins with personal example rather than words. By choosing action, you demonstrate what commitment looks like in practice. There will always be reasons not to act. Conditions will never be completely perfect. Doubts will occasionally return. Challenges will arise unexpectedly. Yet progress belongs to those who move forward anyway. The difference between people who transform their lives and those who remain stuck is rarely intelligence or talent. It is the willingness to act consistently despite uncertainty. Over time, excuses lose their power because action changes perspective. You begin to see obstacles as temporary and effort as meaningful. You realize that waiting for ideal circumstances is unnecessary because growth happens through engagement with imperfect situations. Each step forward strengthens determination and weakens hesitation. Eventually, action becomes part of your identity. You stop asking whether you feel ready and start asking what step you can take today. Momentum replaces procrastination. Purpose replaces hesitation. You learn that progress is not about dramatic leaps, but about steady movement. The habit of action transforms not only results but mindset, creating a sense of control and direction. And one day you look back and recognize that the life you once imagined began changing. Luck. At your own, the moment you stopped explaining why you couldn't, and started proving that you could. The excuses that once felt powerful fade into the background, replaced by evidence of growth created through consistent effort. Action becomes more than behavior. It becomes a way of living, a commitment to progress, courage, and the belief that every small step taken today shapes the person you become tomorrow. Embracing discomfort for growth is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood principles of personal transformation. Human beings naturally seek comfort because comfort feels safe, predictable, and emotionally secure. From an early age, people learn to avoid pain, uncertainty, and struggle whenever possible. While this instinct protects survival, it can also limit progress when comfort becomes a permanent destination instead of a temporary resting place. Growth begins at the exact point where comfort ends, because transformation requires experiences that challenge old habits, stretch abilities, and force adaptation. The life you desire often exists just beyond the boundaries of what currently feels easy. Discomfort appears in many forms. It may be the nervous feeling before trying something new, the resistance you feel when building discipline, the fear of being judged when expressing your true ideas, or the frustration that comes when progress feels slow. These sensations are often interpreted as signs that something is wrong, but in reality, they are signals that change is occurring. Just as muscles grow through stress and recovery, character grows through challenge and reflection. Avoiding discomfort prevents development because it removes the very conditions necessary for improvement. One reason people resist discomfort is the misunderstanding that growth should feel natural or effortless. Modern culture often celebrates quick success and instant results, creating realistic expectations about transformation. When effort becomes difficult or progress slows, many assume they are failing or that the path is not meant for them. In truth, struggle is not evidence of inability. It is evidence of expansion. Learning any new skill requires periods of confusion and effort. Emotional growth requires confronting fears. Mental strength develops through facing challenges repeatedly. Discomfort is not an obstacle to growth. It is the process itself. Comfort zones are powerful because they create familiarity. Within them, outcomes are predictable, and risks feel minimal. However, comfort zones gradually shrink possibilities. When you repeat only what feels safe, life becomes limited to past experiences. Opportunities that require courage remain unexplored. Over time, the comfort zone becomes less like a sanctuary and more like a boundary. Growth requires stepping beyond that boundary into uncertainty, where learning accelerates. Each time you expand your comfort zone, what once felt uncomfortable becomes normal, creating space for further growth. Fear plays a central role in discomfort. Fear warns of potential danger, but it does not always distinguish between physical risk and psychological challenge. Speaking in front of others, pursuing a dream, changing careers, or developing new habits can trigger fear even when no real harm exists. The mind interprets unfamiliar situations as threats because they break routine. Embracing discomfort means recognizing fear without allowing it to dictate decisions. Courage emerges when action continues despite uncertainty. Over time, repeated exposure reduces fear's intensity, proving that many perceived limitations were temporary mental barriers. Discomfort also teaches resilience. When you face difficult situations instead of avoiding them, you develop the ability to endure challenges without losing. Look at your direction. Resilience is not built during easy moments, but during periods of struggle. Each obstacle overcome strengthens emotional endurance and confidence. You begin to trust your ability to handle difficulty, which reduces anxiety about future challenges. This trust becomes a foundation for long-term growth because you no longer fear hardship as intensely. Another important aspect of embracing discomfort is patience. Growth rarely happens instantly. Effort may not produce immediate rewards, and progress can feel invisible at times. Discomfort often arises during these waiting periods when results have not yet appeared. Patience allows you to continue working despite uncertainty. It teaches persistence and faith in gradual improvement. When you accept that meaningful change takes time, discomfort becomes easier to tolerate because you understand its purpose. Discomfort also reveals hidden strengths. Many people underestimate their abilities because they have never tested themselves beyond familiar limits. When faced with challenges, individuals often discover creativity, determination, and courage they did not realize they possessed. These qualities emerge only when circumstances demand adaptation. Without challenge, potential remains dormant. Discomfort acts as a catalyst that awakens inner capabilities and expands self-belief. Learning thrives in uncomfortable environments. When tasks feel easy, the brain operates on automatic patterns, reinforcing existing knowledge but not creating new understanding. When difficulty increases, the brain becomes more engaged, forming new neural connections. Mistakes become valuable feedback rather than failures. Each attempt refines skill and awareness. Embracing discomfort in learning transforms mistakes into stepping stones rather than setbacks. This mindset accelerates improvement because effort becomes focused on growth rather than avoiding error. Emotional discomfort also plays a crucial role in personal development. Honest self-reflection can feel uncomfortable because it exposes weaknesses, fears, and unresolved emotions. Yet avoiding self-reflection prevents healing and growth. When you allow yourself to confront difficult emotions, you gain insight into your behaviors and motivations. This understanding creates freedom because you are no longer controlled by unconscious patterns. Emotional discomfort becomes a pathway toward self-awareness and maturity. Relationships also benefit from embracing discomfort. Meaningful connections require vulnerability, honest communication, and the willingness to address conflict constructively. Avoiding uncomfortable conversations may preserve temporary peace, but often leads to misunderstanding or emotional distance. Growth in relationships occurs when individuals communicate openly, listen deeply, and face challenges together. Discomfort strengthens connection by encouraging authenticity and trust. Another dimension of discomfort involves discipline. Building new habits often feels difficult at first because the brain resists change. Waking up earlier, exercising regularly, studying consistently, or pursuing long-term goals requires effort that conflicts with immediate comfort. The initial stages feel challenging because the mind prefers familiar routines. However, repetition gradually reduces resistance. What once felt difficult becomes manageable and eventually rewarding. Discipline transforms discomfort into strength by proving that effort leads to progress. Discomfort also reshapes identity. Each time you choose growth over comfort, you reinforce a new belief about yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone capable of facing challenges rather than avoiding them. This shift changes how you approach future opportunities. Confidence grows, waves, not from ease, but from evidence of perseverance. Identity evolves through actions taken during uncomfortable moments, shaping a mindset oriented toward progress. There is also a deeper meaning within discomfort. It often signals alignment with purpose. Pursuing meaningful goals requires effort because they matter deeply. Challenges arise because growth demands change. When you feel discomfort while pursuing something meaningful, it often indicates that you are stretching beyond old limitations. Instead of interpreting discomfort as a reason to stop, you can view it as confirmation that you are moving forward. Rest remains important within this process. Embracing discomfort does not mean constant exhaustion or ignoring personal well-being. Growth requires balance between challenge and recovery. Just as muscles need rest after exertion, the mind and emotions require periods of renewal. Look at your healthy growth involves intentional effort combined with self-care. The goal is not suffering, but expansion, choosing meaningful difficulty over stagnant comfort. Over time, your relationship with discomfort changes. What once felt intimidating becomes familiar. You begin to welcome challenges because you understand their role in development. Uncertainty becomes less threatening because experience has shown that growth follows effort. This shift creates a mindset of curiosity rather than avoidance. Instead of asking how to escape difficulty, you begin asking what it can teach you. Discomfort also strengthens gratitude. Facing challenges increases appreciation for progress and resilience. Achievements feel more meaningful because they were earned through effort. You begin valuing growth itself rather than only outcomes. This perspective creates deeper satisfaction because fulfillment comes from becoming stronger rather than simply achieving external success. As you continue embark in discomfort, fear loses its control. Challenges no longer appear as barriers, but as opportunities for expansion. You recognize that every stage of growth once felt uncomfortable, and yet each step brought improvement. This realization builds courage for future challenges because you trust the process of transformation. Eventually, embracing discomfort becomes a lifestyle rather than a temporary effort. You seek opportunities to learn, improve, and challenge yourself because growth becomes a priority. Comfort remains valuable for rest and reflection, but it no longer defines your limits. You understand that the greatest achievements, deepest confidence, and strongest character emerge from moments that once felt difficult. And gradually, you realize that discomfort was never your enemy. It was the teacher guiding you towards strength, wisdom, and self-discovery. Every challenge faced expanded your perspective. Every fear confronted increased your courage. Every effort made reshaped your identity. Growth was not found by avoiding difficulty, but by walking through it with determination. The person you become through embracing discomfort is stronger, more resilient, and more alive. Someone who understands that true transformation begins the moment you stop running from challenge and start welcoming it as a necessary part of becoming your best self. Creating your new self daily is not a single decision made once in life. It is a continuous process, shaped by small choices repeated every day. Many people believe transformation happens through one powerful moment of inspiration, but real change is quieter and more consistent. It happens when ordinary days are approached with intention instead of habit. Every morning presents an opportunity to redefine who you are through your thoughts, actions, and responses. The person you become is not determined by your past, but by what you repeatedly choose to do in the present. Identity is not fixed, it is built daily through behavior. Each day begins with a mental reset, whether you recognize it or not. The moment you wake up, your mind has the chance to follow old patterns or create new ones. Thoughts often default to familiar worries, doubts, or routines because the brain prefers efficiency. However, conscious awareness allows you to interrupt these automatic patterns. By choosing intentional thoughts at the start of the day, you influence emotions, decisions, and actions that follow. A new self begins with a new mindset, and mindset is shaped through repeated focus. Daily creation of self requires clarity about who you want to become. Without direction, actions remain scattered and inconsistent. When you define qualities you wish to develop, discipline, patience, confidence, kindness, resilience, you begin aligning daily behaviors with those traits. Instead of asking what you feel like doing, you begin asking what the person you want to become would do in this moment. This shift transforms everyday decisions into opportunities for growth. Identity becomes something you actively build rather than passively inherit. Habits play a central role in daily transformation. Large goals often feel overwhelming, but habits break change into manageable actions. Look at your small behaviors repeated consistently reshape neural pathways in the brain, making new patterns easier over time. A short period of focused work, a moment of reflection, a commitment to learning, or a simple act of self-discipline may seem minor individually, yet their cumulative effect becomes powerful. The new self is not created through dramatic effort, but through steady repetition. Consistency matters more than intensity. Many people begin change with strong enthusiasm, but lose momentum when motivation fades. Creating yourself daily means owing up even when excitement is absent. Some days will feel productive, while others may feel slow or challenging. Progress continues when commitment remains stronger than temporary emotion. Consistency builds trust with yourself. But each time you follow through on a promise you make to yourself, confidence grows because you prove reliability through action. Self-reflection is another essential part of daily transformation. At the end of each day, examining your actions and thoughts helps you understand progress and areas for improvement. Reflection is not about criticism, but awareness. You notice what worked, what didn't, and what lessons were learned. This process allows gradual adjustment rather than drastic correction. Over time, reflection sharpens self-understanding, making growth more intentional and effective. Creating a new self daily also involves letting go repeatedly. Old habits, negative thinking, and limiting beliefs often attempt to return because they are familiar. Transformation requires releasing these patterns again and again. Letting go is not a one-time event, but a continuous practice. Each day presents moments where you must choose between old reactions and new responses. Growth occurs when you consciously select behaviors aligned with your desired identity rather than automatic habits. Discipline becomes a supportive structure rather than a restriction. Many people misunderstand discipline as punishment, but true discipline creates freedom. It reduces internal conflict by providing clear direction. When routines are established, decisions require less mental effort, allowing energy to focus on meaningful pursuits. Discipline ensures that progress continues regardless of mood, making growth reliable instead of unpredictable. The environment you create around yourself influences daily transformation. Surroundings, relationships, and information shape thoughts and behaviors. Choosing environments that encourage growth makes change easier. This may involve organizing physical spaces, limiting distractions, or engaging with people who inspire improvement. While external conditions cannot guarantee success, they can support consistent effort by reinforcing positive habits. Another important element is patience with yourself. Daily creation does not mean perfection. Mistakes and setbacks are inevitable because growth involves experimentation and learning. When progress feels slow, patience prevents discouragement. Each day is part of a larger process. An improvement often becomes visible only after sustained effort. Treating yourself with understanding during difficult moments encourages persistence rather than abandonment of goals. Gratitude strengthens daily transformation by shifting focus toward progress rather than lack. Recognizing small improvements builds motivation and positivity. Gratitude reinforces awareness of growth already achieved, creating momentum for continued effort. Instead of waiting for major success to feel satisfied, you begin appreciating the journey itself. This mindset makes transformation sustainable because fulfillment exists within the process, not only at the destination. Creating your new self daily also involves intentional learning. Growth requires expanding knowledge, perspectives, and skills. Each day offers opportunities to learn through reading, observation, conversation, or experience. Continuous learning keeps the mind adaptable and curious. It prevents stagnation by encouraging exploration beyond familiar understanding. Over time, accumulated knowledge enhances confidence and capability. Emotional regulation becomes stronger through daily practice. Life presents unexpected challenges, but your response shapes personal growth. Choosing calm reflection instead of impulsive reaction strengthens emotional intelligence. Each moment of controlled response reinforces inner stability. Gradually, you develop resilience, allowing you to navigate difficulties without losing direction. Physical well-being also influences identity creation. Energy, focus, and mood are connected to how you care for your body. Daily movement, rest, and nourishment support mental clarity and emotional balance. When physical health improves, motivation and productivity often increase naturally. Caring for your body becomes part of respecting the person you are becoming. Another aspect of daily transformation is aligning actions with values. Values provide meaning and direction. When daily behaviors reflect personal principles, life feels purposeful. Misalignment between actions and values often creates dissatisfaction. By consciously choosing actions that reflect integrity, kindness, or dedication, you strengthen authenticity. Authentic living builds confidence because you act in harmony with your beliefs. Daily challenges become opportunities rather than interruptions. Problems that arise throughout the day can either reinforce old habits or strengthen new ones. Viewing challenges as training moments changes perspective. Each difficulty becomes a chance to practice patience, courage, or creativity. This mindset transforms ordinary experiences into growth experiences. Creating a new self daily also requires forgiveness, both toward yourself and others. Holding on to past mistakes creates emotional weight that slows progress. Forgiveness releases energy previously tied to regret or resentment. It allows focus to return to the present moment, where change is possible. Letting go of guilt does not erase responsibility. It creates space for improv, luck, and event. Vision plays a guiding role in daily transformation. Imagining the person you wish to become provides motivation during challenging moments. This vision acts as a compass, helping you stay aligned with long-term goals. When daily actions connect to a meaningful vision, even small efforts feel significant because they contribute to a larger purpose. Over time, repeated daily effort creates momentum. What once required conscious effort becomes natural behavior. Confidence grows because change becomes visible in thoughts, actions, and results. Others may notice transformation, but the most important change occurs internally. A stronger sense of identity, clarity, and self-trust. There will be days when progress feels invisible, when motivation weakens, or when old habits resurface. These moments are part of the journey, not signs of failure. Creating your new self daily means beginning again each time you stumble. Renewal is always available because every day offers a fresh start. Persistence transforms temporary setbacks into valuable lessons. Eventually, you realize that transformation is not about becoming someone completely different, but about uncovering your highest potential. The new self is built layer by layer through conscious living. Each day becomes meaningful because it contributes to growth. Life shifts from passive existence to intentional creation. And gradually, without dramatic announcements or sudden breakthroughs, you become someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose. The changes may appear small from day to day, but over months and years, they reshape your entire life. The new self is not created in the future. It is created now, in daily choices, daily discipline, and daily belief. Every sunrise becomes an invitation to begin again, to improve again, and to step closer to the person you are capable of becoming.